G'day viewers, right in front of us here is a whole lot of yellow-booted Bostonians and an HSP46. So let's just thread our way through these people and get into the cab and set her up. So I clicked on the door to open it and E to climb in. Similar things on controller, of course. Now the first thing I'm going to do, it's a little bit dark in here, so I'm just going to turn on the ceiling light just for the moment. We'll come and sit in the big chair, always the first thing you want to do from a train control perspective. We are going to put in our reverser handle and we are going to put it into forwards. The next thing I'm going to do is release the train brake, and I'm going to apply the independent brake to keep us here. That will get it to start charging up the train. Alright, next thing I can do is open the window because you get a little bit of the outside sound coming in there, so it's better. I'm going to turn on the gen field switch up here so that we can generate electricity to drive our train. And I want to turn on our gauge lights so that everything is highlighted nicely. Now you probably notice looking around the cab here that there aren't any door buttons anywhere. That's because this is a driver operation and a guard or conductor in the back would take care of it. So you can use your Y or U keys on your keyboard. I've just opened the left doors with the Y key. Or you can use the left and right on your D-pad on your controller. Right, next up we want to do some safety systems while we're waiting for the passengers to load. The first one up here is the alerter. This one is the one that reminds you every little while to see if you're awake, and if you don't respond to it, it will stop your train. Now we're going to open up the fuse cabinet because this train is equipped with ACSES, which is the Advanced Civil Speed Enforcement System. It gives you speed limits for things like bridges and curves and the like, points and yards and things. And this one is ATC, the automatic train control. I'm going to turn both of those on. Automatic train control is very important on this route because this is a permissive block signalling system, which means you will drive up someone's bum if you don't use it. It's time to lock the doors, so I'm doing that with the Y key. Our headlights are already fine. Contact signaler is down here, or dispatcher as it says. And let's just turn off this ceiling light now because we don't need it anymore. Right, ready to go, I think. Now you'll notice that we've got on the HUD there an interlock. That's not actually correct. That's what you call a bug. So, big horn, not that you'd actually do that in a building, because it would deafen people. And I'm going to take 2 notches. I'm using Raildriver to control the throttle today, but you can use your controller or your keyboard as you see fit. And I've released the independent brake now. You can see that the brakes on this right-hand gauge are coming off. We've started to move, and you can see here that we are producing power. We're coming up on it almost 4 kilowatts. We're in notch 3, and we are generating HEP power. ATC and ACSES turned on, PCS is closed, that's part of the emergency braking which I'll show you shortly, and the alerter cutout is not lit. There's not really much you can do on that screen. We're coming out of the station now so we can kill the bell. Now, just going to take the power off again back to idle. In this particular route, you take the lesser of all of the speeds you can see. So we've got a speed limit here of 20 imposed by ATC, and you can see that ACSES is cut in and turned on. But we've also got up here on the HUD a speed limit of 10, and that's because this area is controlled by speed signs and it's at 10 miles an hour. So you always take the lesser of those speeds. Now, what if you got into a situation where you needed to emergency brake? Perhaps you were driving along here and you thought, oh no, I'm going to run into that train that's coming towards me. Bonk! On go the emergency brakes. We'll notice 2 things have happened. Our equalizing reservoir has been dumped to 0. Our main res is still charged up to about 135 or so. We've got 60 pounds in the brake cylinder and 0 in the brake pipe. The brake pipe is the thing that provides air to the rest of the train. You'll also notice over here the PCS light has come on. So to recover from this, make sure your throttle is in idle, and we bring our reverser back to neutral, put the brake into the handle off position if I can find it. There it is. And you'll notice PCS has now closed, so that light's gone green on the display here. So this light here has gone green. we can now release the brakes. Now it'll be a little while because it's got to charge the whole train up, but we can now safely apply just a couple of notches, just to hold us in place and start us moving once the train brakes do charge up. Now it will take a little while for us to get moving. You know what I didn't do? I didn't put it back in forwards. That'd be helpful, wouldn't it? Alright, I put it in forwards and now give it a couple of notches. And we should start producing power shortly. There we go. We're starting to produce some power now. And we should start to move. So before that, we will honk as required and turn off the bell. You can probably hear the train brakes in the back still squealing away a little bit because they're probably still releasing. So let's just pop it up to a notch 3 now just to get us moving. Now, this isn't a tutorial about ACSES and ATC in particular, but all you really need to do is obey the speed limit. When you get set with a speed limit that is slower than the one you've got, and that could be on the radials around here, or it could be here. Either way, get your brake handle into the suppression position, which is about here, until you're doing that speed, and then you can bring it back. Now, that sounds like quite a violent reaction with a heavy braking, and that's true, it is. But the idea is you're supposed to know the route, so you should never actually get pinged by ACSES ever, because you should know where all the high speed and low speed curves and points and bridges and things are. And as for ATC, you should generally be driving to your timetable, which generally means you won't be catching up with the train in front of you. You can see we've just been put up to 30 on this HUD here, but you can see on our HUD here we've only got 15, so we're allowed up to 15. We're almost doing that anyway, so I won't accelerate, as we head for Boston Back Bay. When we get into that station, I'll show you a normal stopping brake. Now, if you fail to come down to the speed inside a reasonable time, and that time actually varies, so it's a little bit hard to explain. Like I said, this is not a tutorial on ATC. You'll notice the HUD's gone up to 30 now as well. The reason that's different is because this happens as soon as you pass over the device on the tracks, but this one goes up after the back of your train has passed that point. So the HUD is actually the correct one. Drivers know to wait until the back of their train has reached that point. Did I open the window this time? I did. It's still a little bit quiet. Just throttle off now because we're coming near the 30 mile an hour. And we have to stop soon at Boston Back Bay anyway. As you can see, the cab's got a nice sway to it thanks to the new suspension. Coming into Boston Back Bay. So in the other route, the stations were on that side of the concrete wall. On this route, they're over here. Now, this is the alerter. I acknowledge that with the Q key, or B or circle on your controller. See, that thing's turned on, so I've turned it off. Alright, so I'm going to apply about a 30% brake at this point. Brakes in this thing, I've got to say, aren't amazing. So expect it to react quite slowly to your inputs. It's a little bit trying to stop a greased up pig on a water slide. There we go. I have a faint suspicion in that one I'm probably supposed to stop with my locomotive in the corridor and with my elevated carriage at that platform, but that's not what the game wants me to do, so we didn't. We can go back onto the independent brake now and release the train brake. And just wait for our passengers to load up. It's time to lock the doors. So again, that's the Y key to lock the left-hand doors. And once we get the indication that doors are locked, which we have, a couple of notches, and release the independent brake as soon as you see the power starting to build. And away we go. Now next time the alerter goes off, I will let it stop the train. Let's just kill the bell since we're out of the platform now. Gently up through the notches, although it wouldn't surprise me at all with real drivers just go straight to notch 8 in passenger operations. It's a bit of flickering on the notches because it's rail driver. It's a little bit hard to see the controls at the moment, but I did move the throttle there down to notch 8. And you can see that we now have a speed limit of 30. We have a 45 indicator here, which we aren't allowed to go over 30, and we have a 30 up here. Now this is the alerter going off again, so I'm going to let it stop the train. Actually, that one wasn't the alerter that stopped the train, that was actually ACSES that stopped the train that time. Fair enough. So we acknowledge that. Put our brakes into suppression. So brakes to suppression and then acknowledge it. We should now be able to release the brakes and start powering. Should start to pick up some power. There it goes. I can just see on the screen there's a little blue bar starting to progress, so we'll give it a couple of honks. So that happened because I was actually going too fast. I thought that was the alerter sound, but it was not. So it's a little bit easy to get confused about which is which. If you stay over the speed limit for too long, it will whack you, as it just did with me, but that's quite convenient because you now know how to recover from it. So basically put your train brake into the suppression position, that one there, and put your throttle back to idle, and acknowledge using the Q key or B or circle depending on your controller flavour. So let's get going again off to Lansdowne. I kind of think the track joint noise in this is excessive because this is continuous welded rail through here. But the community keep asking for it, and what the community want, the community get. Alright, so this time I'm going to react the appropriate way, put my brake into suppression, and acknowledge, and we've come down below the limit, and we can release again. So the trick to it is don't go too fast, because that would be quite harsh for your passengers, having to go all the way up to suppression all the time. So now you've seen how to reset it, and you've seen how to recover when you're just going too quick, without getting the emergency brake applied on you. Coming into Lansdowne in 500 yards or so. And we'll be stopping here again. Remember, we are driving the Greasy Pig train, so brake early, brake often. We're only doing 30 miles an hour though, so it's not that big a deal. Let's just get a pretty light on application to start. and gradually increase it. These are self-lapping brakes, so you don't need to worry about moving it into another position. You just put it anywhere you want in the service zone. And there we go. Pretty close to spot on. Opening the doors, once again, it is the Y key, or U if it's on the right-hand side. So we'll take it along for one more stop as part of this tutorial. And once we've done that, we'll show you how to leave the train so it's ready for the next driver. Doors are locked. Release our brakes, and while they're releasing, let's just notch up. We are producing some power. You can either do it that way, or you can do it the way I did in the other station, where while I was stopped I went onto the independent brake and just kept the train brake released. I generally prefer to sit at the station on the independent brake, and you can hear why. You can hear the brakes are still in the process of coming off, so they're squealing away, which means you're wasting fuel. Get rid of that bell. I think the person who was painting those lines might have been drunk. Yeah, look at the cars pop in and pop out under the bridge. Nothing to see here. Move along. Alright, we are now allowed to do 40 miles an hour. So remember, it's the lesser of the speeds. So we've got 40 here, 45, and 40 here. So 40 is the speed we're going to do. Quite a nice sounding engine. Sounds a lot like the videos I've heard of these machines. Now in some areas in this route we still have colour light signalling, in other areas we don't. So we're now down to, there's 40 here and it's set by ACSES. Before it was being set by ATC. And we've got mass here. So we'll do the lowest of the speeds still. So now we've gone up to 45 on ACSES and mass here, and we've got 45 up on the HUD, so we can do 45. So we'll put a bit of power on. Now if you don't use the safety systems, the enforcement side of them, this still isn't turned off if you don't turn the safety systems on. All we'll do is it won't punish you. What will happen if you don't obey these speed limits is you'll still run into the back of another train. Mile to go to Boston Landing Track 1. We are now allowed up to 79 on the HUD, so we can do that. The back of our train hasn't actually passed that point. There it goes, it just did, so the HUD has changed. So I've got her into notch 8, full beans. Now this train, every time you touch a control, it resets the alerter timeout. That's why we haven't heard it yet. But if it goes off, you need to acknowledge it or it'll stop you. We're going to give some strong braking this time because we're coming into the station fairly hard, 50 odd miles an hour. She's braking very nicely. She's switched over to the EP brakes. Release and let it roll the rest of the way. I'm still getting used to the braking on this. Sometimes it brakes really nicely like that, and sometimes it just goes whoosh. totally depending on the circumstances of where you are. If you're watching this now and you've just got the game, I've got about 30 minutes more experience than you do this time. Normally we get them the Friday before release, but that didn't happen this time for whatever reason. So we've just got a few minutes to learn it ourselves so that I can teach you. Alrighty, now I'm going to show you how to shut down the train. So make sure our throttle is in idle, reverser is in neutral. We put our brake handle into the handle off position, just past suppression, but not quite into emergency. You can turn your headlights off if you wish. You don't really have to, but you can. And I would leave the alerter on, just leave that alone because that would normally be on all the time. Turn off your gen field, and we can pop off our gauge lights, and we can get up and leave the train because that's the end of our shift. We fell off the platform. Marvellous. And I think I'm stuck in the platform. Fortunately, I can get back on here. That was a bit of a bonus, wasn't it? Alright, let's see if that happens again. Yep. Right. Okay, I guess we're not getting off the train here. That's okay. Hopefully that will get addressed in the future. Anyway, that's all I wanted to show you for this tutorial. This is the HSP46, and you can find it on the Boston Commuter, MBTA Commuter. Alright, have fun folks. Got any questions? Chuck them down below, and I'll see what I can do to help you out. Let me know what you think of the train. Alright, see ya. Bye.
We played a game.